Welcome to Labor Lounge Podcast. I'm Anthony Abrantes, Assistant Executive Secretary Treasurer of the Eastern Atlantic States Regional Council of Carpenters, the Carpenters Union.
And I'm Cyndie Williams, Executive Director of the CCT. Together as your co-hosts, we'll explore the world of organized labor, bringing you behind-the-scenes stories and insights from inspiring union leaders, dedicated partners, and community change makers. In each episode, we dive into authentic conversation to uncover what unions are really about beyond the headlines and the myths.
Whether you're new to the movement or a union ally, our conversation showcasing diverse voices and real-life stories will explore union hurdles, triumphs, labor's rich history, its role in workforce development, all while shedding light on how unions create lasting change and foster economic growth and creating generational wealth.
Join us as we build a broader coalition, elevate future generations, and showcase how unions contribute to creating a positive cultural legacy.
Tune in, get informed, and find out how organized labor is making a difference. Today we are joined by Mike Schloff, the founder and CEO of Maplewoodshop, a company that brings hands-on woodworking education into schools, camps, and community spaces across the country. His mission, to develop the life skills in all children through woodworking, and in the process, he's helping build the next generation of skilled craftspeople. He sits on the board of the Museum of Early Trades and Crafts, Congregation Bethel, and the North Barringer High School CTE Advisory Board. Mike lives in Maplewood, New Jersey with his wife Liz and two children, Noah and Gabriella. Good morning, Michael. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning, Mike. It's so great to be here with you today.
Good. Thank you. It's great to be here, Cyndie.
Yeah, we've known each other for a few years now and have worked hand in hand on some projects together, and I'm really excited to get into an interview with you and have our audience really get to know you a little bit and understand how they might be able to plug and play you in their own communities. So thanks for joining.
My pleasure. Thank you both.
Yeah, and since we've gotten together, we've been very fortunate. You've been helping expand our footprint in terms of how we get into curriculums earlier on in life. So we're grateful for the partnership.
So we'll get going with the questions. Sure.
All right.
Mike, your mission with Maplewoodshop is to build life skills through woodworking. That deeply resonates with us in the Carpenters Union, where hands-on learning is the foundation. How do you see programs like yours as a part of your larger workforce development pipeline, especially when it comes to introducing young people to union trades?
Got it. So thank you so much. It's great to be here, and I'm grateful for every opportunity that we have to help kids discover their own wiring. So in terms of how this develops future workers, and when I say workers, it could be the job site, it could be the CEO, it could be the boardroom, it could be a surgeon, it could be a plumber. And the point is, people need to have purpose. And our school system today is sort of set up in a way that you get rewarded for sitting still. And if you can't sit still, you don't get rewarded. You get to feel bad about yourself. I was one of those kids. Kids are still like that. So our mission to help all children develop life skills through woodworking is a great medium. The skills you learn are wider than people most think. For example, math. It's tremendous at teaching math. It's tremendous at teaching how to be a good listener, how to be a good leader, how to be a good collaborator. It's fantastic at seeing how things work in the real world. And so whether you're developing soft skills that are universally applicable, math skills which are necessary for any trade or any job, and then just finding out that you are good at something is such a deep experience that we're grateful we can offer this at starting at young ages all the way through high school and young adults.
Now, before we continue, I think one of the things that the audience would definitely love to hear is this wasn't your forte. You didn't start in workforce development, woodworking. Talk a little bit about how you got to where you got to, where we are today.
Yeah, so I grew up in Minnesota, and I was fortunate enough to have a dad who loved cycling. So I grew up fixing bikes, and I went to schools that I got kicked out of class a lot because I couldn't sit still. Didn't mean I was dumb, didn't mean I was smart, just meant I couldn't sit still. And I would go home and fix bikes with my dad, felt better about myself. Fast forward to 2004, and then I was able to go to college, and I studied Italian and economics, so really not anything to do with this directly. I then discovered the internet in 1994, and had a long career, 21 years, developing new products, new ideas, ways to use this new medium. So I love the idea of being able to tinker and figure things out and help people. But at night, I would go home and I was unsatisfied and I needed to do something with my hands. So I got into woodworking. And it also helped. 2004, we bought our first house and we couldn't afford the repairs. So the confidence I had from fixing bikes translated to fixing things in the home. And there was something about woodworking that really spoke to me. I was using this terrible Home Depot Buck Brothers plane, $20 block plane, just the worst. But I was making a stair tread, and I felt, wow, I'm 35 years old, and in another 35 years, I'm going to be amazing at this. And I'm not a patient person, so for me to give myself a runway like that, now fast forward 11 years further to 2015, my friend says, hey, you like woodworking. I'm going to have a maker fair in our town of Maplewood, New Jersey. Do you want to run a table with kids? I said, yeah, why not? I like working with kids. I like mentoring. And I showed up that day, and I have a photo of the first young person I worked with. He's probably 10. He's holding up this footstool he made. He's got this demonic gleam in his eye. He's so proud of himself. And that stuck with me. And I realized I found my purpose, my calling in life was to help kids develop these life skills. So I opened a storefront woodworking school in South Orange, the next town over. Very quickly met a teacher from New York City who said, man, I wish I could do this in my classroom. So I invented a workbench that goes on school tables and made the whole program portable. We also don't use any power tools. So it's portable, it's safe. And then I taught with Lindsay, the teacher, and realized, wow, teachers they know what they're doing and they know how to teach. They just don't know woodworking. So I pivoted the mission a little bit from me teaching, which I really love, to enabling other people to teach. And so our mission has grown so much bigger. Like we have launched over 200 programs around the country and one in Kenya, Australia, Thailand, because we found a way to help regular teachers bring all these benefits of woodworking back into their classroom without having to have a certification, without having to have a dedicated shop room. And from that led to meeting the Carpenters Union during COVID, making miniature versions of their excellent curriculum, and now helping create high school programs using the Carpenters Union curriculum, which is just fantastic and worth 16 college credits.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. You talked about exposure. So your system is a mobile kit. The instructor does not need to be a tradesperson. In many cases, these are people that are teaching math, gym, science. How do you think that system helps create an opportunity in schools that maybe didn't necessarily have a wood shop or have the capacity of a wood shop? And what is that exposure at such a young age? How does it translate into success in an apprentice program or in the trades?
Sure. So in terms of being able to harness this big workforce, meaning the teachers that are already in the schools, a lot of those teachers are like us. They like working with their hands, but they don't get to bring that part of themselves to school. They're forced to do the kind of school where you got to make the kids sit still. And so when they get an opportunity to be themselves, teach in a real world way, the way we taught for thousands of years, it's only the last 150 years that we've taught in a classroom. So when they get to do that, it feels right, it works well, and they don't have to be experts. So it works for the principals, it works for the teachers, it works for the kids. For the kids, by fourth grade, they're making up their minds about whether they're good at school or not. They're saying to themselves, I'm dumb, I'm smart, I'm bad at math. But people aren't bad at math. They're just, unfortunately, the way it was taught to them was not helpful. It's too conceptual, it doesn't mean anything. But when you can draw it out, when you can work it out on paper and in wood, where a worksheet, you got it wrong, that's a red mark. In the real world, you got it wrong, it doesn't fit. And so you learn really fast, like, okay, I need to work on my math to make it work. And so to realize that at a young age before they've made these negative, self-impressions is so valuable, helping kids stay in school. And whether they become a carpenter or a plumber or a CEO or a surgeon, it's all good. We just want them to want to go to school. And
Sure, and those types of trades, they don't have to be a carpenter to be a hands-on, to have hands-on employment when they get older. And so to be able to have that tactile learning in middle school is so amazing for our young people. And again, like you said, not having to sit still, standing up, putting your hands on something, being able to measure, cut, it's so satisfying. And I've learned firsthand just watching children get their hands on a piece of wood and be able to, craft something and be proud of it. And it's so great to watch. You've done a bunch of trainings for us, for our young people. Some of our employees, sons and daughters, have been able to craft woodwork with you, and it's been so great to watch them just change their outlook on what it might look like for their own careers.
It's funny, why woodworking versus starting with plumbing or electrical or something else, right? There's something about wood. It's an organic material, it's uneven, things break. We have a safety poster, and one of our rules says something will go wrong. How you deal with it is what matters. And that rule was written because kids would be almost finished with the project, and the wood they were using split. And it's like, well, what are you going to do? Well, actually, it's a good chance to figure it out and try some things and see what works in a really low-risk way. You can fail. I've had kids who were crying. They were so frustrated, but then they figured it out. And that, was that much more pride they had. And the kids who are really bad at sitting still are often really good with their hands. And so we even coach teachers to make that kid the table captain or table ambassador. And they're not done until they're helping the other kids. So now you got this kid who was before like maybe behavioral, because they're just seeking attention, but they're used to getting negative attention. Trust me, I know. I was there. But now they have a chance to be the hero. And we learned that from a school working with third graders. And it works all the way through. People they want to have purpose. And when you can give them that purpose, you solve problems on many levels.
Sure. And just thinking back, one of the pieces of advice I got when I was young as a carpenter was, what defines a great carpenter is somebody that doesn't do it right the first time, but learns how to fix their mistakes and nobody notices. So, you think about it, you're going to make a mistake on a job, and what makes a great one is somebody that can pivot and make it work.
Right? All those critical thinking skills, it's they're used everywhere. Whether you're I joke, like, why do we value a coder, a computer programmer, more than a carpenter? And it's the idea of problem solving, the idea of asking for help, the idea of helping others. It's the same, and we should value that when we see it in the real world, not just on the screen. Yeah, they're great skills to have.
The one thing I love about this program, and I've seen it as you've progressed and our partnership has formed, is talking about building confidence in kids that may necessarily not have had it, right? And translating math and geometry and science into something tangible, where maybe I'm not a great test taker, but if I could take those math skills and actually build something with my hands and showcase my talents, I've seen a lot of buy-in now from guidance counselors, schools, and parents, where now they see the opportunity, a path for their child, right? Doesn't necessarily have to be a higher education, or it could be a combination of. And you bringing in a mobile kit that takes out all the excuses in the world, well, we don't have a trained instructor, it's going to cost too much, we need a classroom. Those barriers are broken. Now we have this system that we can roll into a middle school, an after school program, a rec program, a high school, and give those kids the ability to actually access a career they may not necessarily have had.
Mm-hmm. And I've worked with programs with you, and some of the instructors are gym coaches or gym teachers, wrestling coaches. They don't necessarily have to have any background. They just have to have a desire, and it's kind of a plug and play system that you have there. That with a little bit of study and a little bit of background, someone who's not in a CTE instructor position can fully teach this program. And empower themselves, right?
Absolutely, they love it. 90% of the people we train have no background in woodworking, and they like to bring that part of themselves to work. We provide the curriculum, the training, this equipment that we manufacture in a union shop in New Jersey, and then even all the project materials. So to your point, Anthony, we take all the logistical, all the confusion. Like, people want to do this, but they don't have the space. They don't want to bus the kids to another district. They just they don't know where to start. And so we're glad we can make it easy for them, because then they can focus on the so what. Getting to the starting line, it's a big lift. And the starting line is when the kids actually engage and start learning. We want them to focus on that part. They're good at, working with kids. We want to make it as simple as possible so they can get the best results.
Yeah, and just going back to that feeling or thought about trades being undervalued and decimated really in school systems, what can we do further to create visible pathways and connect deeper to schools with programs like yours? What do you think some of the fits may be?
Well, I think, it's everything evolves, right? So here we are, it's 2025. Back in the 90s, we as a country said, well, we're going to outsource manufacturing. We're going to, by 2000, there was no child left behind. We're going to become a nation of service workers and intellectual workers, right? I went down that path. I bought into that. I was all in. And then it turns out, you know what? I like working with my hands. My sister, similar, she's a contractor and a photographer. My brother makes suits. It's funny, all these kids that were on this pathway of like, you have to go to college and, do well. I don't know what you're going to do, but just do well, be happy. I was like, oh, okay. So now here we are. We've got like $1.7 trillion in student debt. We've got huge unemployment. We've got a big part of the country that's very dissatisfied. And, people want purpose. So by reintroducing these basic skills, like how to be a good member of your community, because someone needs help, you help them. You need help, someone helps you. You learn math, so you can really figure out, like, that's a bad price. You learn what truth feels like, literally feels like. There's a thing, Doug Stowe does a lot with children's education, and he was positing that, when you build something with your hands, you know if it's right or wrong. You know what's true because you can literally feel it. And so then that feeling, that muscle that you're exercising and what truth feels like, you can use and combat disinformation. Because you're like, I'm going to call BS on that. That feels wrong. But if you're only in the virtual world, and the virtual world is better than the real world, that's rough. So by re-engaging in the real world, re-engaging with each other, as people, as humans, that we're different from each other, and that can be okay. But it's about working together as a team that matters. And so whether you become, you rent an apartment and you know how to fix some things, and you feel better, you've got more control of your life, whether you decide the trades are for me and you go with that path, or whether you run a company like myself and realize, what? You can be a capitalist and still pay people well. You can be a capitalist and still make sure your workers are safe. I was thinking, we had this beautiful old Delta Unisaw, cabinet saw, just fantastic, right? Nothing wrong with it, except that I had my team, they're in their 20s. I was like, you can't tell which finger, but I put one of my own fingers through a saw stop. And I'm grateful, I still have all my fingers, can't even tell. And I thought, I cannot, for $3,000, I couldn't sleep at night if I cheaped out and didn't, protect them.
Oh yeah.
So you can have it both ways.
Brilliant.
You can have it both ways. So going back to the basics is the earlier we can start helping kids realize they matter, everybody matters, and that they have pathways that weren't obvious. There's more than one way to succeed in life. Maybe it's college, maybe it's not. Maybe you can still get college credits while you're in high school without taking AP classes by using the Carpenters pre-apprenticeship program. That's what I think can help actually ultimately bring this country together.
Sure. You drive such a good point when you talk about technology and the use of technology just, driving people to be less connected. And it's such an interesting thing to put my own child in front of a piece of tech for a couple hours, whether it's video games or screens, phones, and see and watch their behavior after they've come off of these technologies. How less connected they are, how anxiety driven than they can become, how much of a personality shift comes into play. It's amazing to be able to take them away from that and bring them into the woods and let them ride a bike, or put them onto something like a piece of wood to craft or to learn from. Instead, these screens are in schools now where they're on laptops all day long. And I got a kid that learns differently and is absolutely affected by technology. The more we can kind of come back to, real feet in real time, hands-on things, I'm all for it. All for it. So appreciate that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned teamwork, collaboration. How did you come about being on the board of advisors for CTE at Barringer High School? And I guess what role do you think groups like yourself, unions can play and be part of in terms of collaborating to create a culture of opportunity for the trades in high schools, just like yourself on this advisory board?
Sure. So, you got to give back and you got to be engaged. Like seeing, I didn't grow up in Newark. And so to go into the community and see how people are working hard, trying to have a better life for their kids, how the administrators at the high school are trying so hard to do the right thing all the time. And it just feels great to play some small role in supporting that, connecting some dots here or there, trying to hire some of these kids as apprentices as they come out, whatever it is. But, what is it? You bring time, treasure, or talent, as a volunteer. And so everything matters, and whatever you can do to help matters. And also on that advisory board are some of the local council reps, the business agents from the union. And I've worked with them. They're great. And I've also worked with some union members who were teachers. And I realized, man, the Carpenters Union, the idea of lifelong education, the idea of training, that critical thinking, the problem solving, that becomes a way of life, which is actually like more relaxing because nothing feels impossible. You can, I don't know that yet. I haven't figured that out yet. And I worked with this one retired carpenter, and watching him coach these young people on techniques, I realized, wow, this is an organization that really teaches people how to teach. You don't think of the carpenters as educators, but it's a massive, impressive culture, not just in the training centers, but the rank and file, because they're training apprentices all the time. So being able to work with them and help the kids is this is what it means. You get these feedback loops. So the youth bring enthusiasm, us elders bring experience, and we need each other just for that. So I hope that answered the question.
No, it did. And that collaboration, and I think we've seen it collectively here, like the success on how that's translated into some folks actually graduating from high school, getting into the Carpenter Apprentice program, going to work, working in their own city that they live in, stories that people are always telling us can't happen. Partnerships like this have created those stories. So it can happen. We can create wealth for individuals, for communities. We can create generational wealth, but it takes a family of people to do that. I think we've showcased that works. And I think your story at Maplewood Shops tells it itself. I think you guys have been highlighted, if you want to talk about that, on major news networks around the country. I mean, you're in school districts across the country. Talk a little bit about how you've expanded and what your footprint looks like and how success has came about.
Yeah, so the blessing of having a long life is that, working in digital media for 21 years, I got to work at a company that did online training and saw what a blended learning approach looked like. This is pre-COVID, pre what we're used to now. And the idea of training, having a library, like basically taking a program, like my teaching, and then turning it into a product. So I sort of made myself into a product of how do you teach someone who doesn't know woodworking how to hold a saw, how to hammer without smashing your thumb, how to check measurements. And these are techniques that have existed for thousands of years, right? Nothing I teach is new. I'm standing on the shoulders of everyone before me. But they didn't film it. And they didn't film it in a way that was intended to help teachers then relay that to their students. So as a result of that digital part of the program, the kids don't see anything digital. They're working with their hands. They might see a video on a smart board that has the right technique, but they're doing all the work. It enabled us to have programs in places we haven't set foot in. California, Oregon, Florida, Nevada, and especially, locally, New Jersey, New York City. So we've launched over 200 programs in the last 9 years, and we estimate we've helped, somewhere between like 20 and 30,000 youth so far, and that number is growing and accelerating because the teachers get more comfortable, and so we're grateful we can help so many. And our mission is to, get that number to 300,000 in the next 3-4 years. So we're looking to grow and replicate this, because it's just basic, useful knowledge for anyone, how to manipulate the world around them, know math, and know how to be a better collaborator, a better person. Is who wouldn't want that?
Sure.
Yeah.
I've had the advantage through working with the trust to be able to host events for you where we bring you into schools and cities around the six state region that we cover. And it's been amazing to watch the connection, the mentorship happen in real time with people that have never touched a project before. Parents with kids, students. Can you tell me a little bit about what that looks like when you come in with folks that haven't been exposed to any of it, just the transformation that happens in these communities and schools?
Yeah, so it's funny, the transformation, it can happen in a few minutes. We have a little project we call it string art. You're taking little nails, hammers, piece of number 2 pine, and making a pattern. And we've worked with all kinds of kids and adults. And, a lot of adults never learned this. Shop class got phased out probably around 2000. So anyone who's, under 40, they might not have had it. And so this project, you might hammer 20 nails, right? The first nail, it's a disaster. We coach people on elbow elevation and trying to help them understand the nail's giving you feedback, even if it doesn't go in straight. And we have a tip we call tap, tap, bang. You tap it gently until it stands up, then you take your hand away, and then you pound it, right? Nobody ever taught me that as a kid. It would have been useful. And then you get to the 5th nail. They're doing a little better. Or they see a pattern of how come my nails are always bending this way. And then you can correct that. Then they get to the 10th nail, and they're not bad. And they get to the 15th nail and the 20th nail, and they're like, okay, they learned a skill. And so that transformation of going from, I didn't think I could do this, it seems really hard, really dangerous, but I made it through. It's like that's the first step in their journey. We use Japanese pull saws. They've got cross-cut teeth on one side, rip-cut teeth on the other. We don't use any power tools whatsoever. And so using that saw, when you entrust a kid, a 4th grader, to use that saw, and especially the kid that might have been like, that kid has trouble, look out. And they know it, they read it, right? But they were entrusted to use this tool, and it was safe. They were fine. And they proved to others that it was fine. And so now the teachers see a whole new side of that kid. And we work with neurotypical kids, neurodiverse kids, kids on the spectrum, and it's engaging. So it's nice to see that transformation isn't reserved for a select few. Everyone's going through their transformations. And look, there's a lot of flavors on how to do that. I want to give respect to other ways to do it. Our flavor happens to be woodworking, but it's just beautiful. And the smell of the pine, there's something that goes deep about that. And if you're in a city and you don't get out much, or there aren't many trees, you're in a kind of a desert of green, to have that nature experience without having to bus somewhere is it's really lovely. Yeah.
You're just bringing it back. There was a time where I would teach pre-apprentices for a program called Job Corps, and disadvantaged, underprivileged, ages 16 to 24, and we built something like 40 handicap ramps in the community here in New Jersey, up in northern Jersey. And I just remember providing the vehicle for them to be able to do volunteer work, building a handicap ramp in front of someone's home where they would come out in the end and they would be so grateful, so thankful. And these young people, the amount of pride that they had was just, it was palpable. You could just feel it. And it was such an amazing thing to have the vehicle of carpentry be able to provide that opportunity for them. And It's just, it's a memory I'll never forget. And a lot of them went on to become union apprentices and work in the field and use it as their career. And it's just an amazing thing to see.
Let's talk about the demand of the trades, right? Because for probably a couple decades, couple generations, folks are kind of being pushed higher education. And what we've seen, at least on the union trade side, is that there's been reinvigoration of people wanting to come back. Almost so that there's so many people that want to come back, we just don't have the work opportunities for them. Now, with your program, and I'm sure you're seeing this because I've seen it just having conversations with you and some of the folks that have adopted your curriculum, what type of demand are you seeing now? And whether it's a rec program or a middle school, a high school, groups wanting to basically embrace what you're providing?
Mm-hmm. So what we've seen is we call it shop regret. They regret getting rid of shop. Mm-hmm. And it was useful in middle school. It was essential in high school, and so in terms of, and then we see schools realizing that there's more than one pathway to success. It's not just college, and so there's a kind of a big pendulum swinging back and forth, and it swung out towards we're going to outsource all manufacturing, swinging back. And so, if we want to reshore all manufacturing, we want to, build everything here, we need a lot of people. I mean, even a year ago, what were the stats? Like one of the Deloitte, I think, consulting said there was going to be like 10% less GDP, just as a result of lack of skilled workers. The number might be bigger. I might have that wrong. And, you've got student debt. You've got, something like a third of the ships in the Navy are dry docked because there are not enough people to fix them. So we've got, national security concerns because we don't have enough skilled people good with their hands. There's enough people that are good with their hands. They're just not skilled. And they're not skilled because everyone told them you got to go to college. Then you don't want to make them wait 30 years to figure out, I'm much happier working with my hands. And you can be both. You can be smart and you can be handy,
Absolutely.
You shouldn't have to choose. And so that's where we're seeing the demand. The rec centers, the towns, the schools, and we're still at the phase where it's kind of early adopters, the ones where their need is the greatest. They have huge absenteeism problems, or they have terrible math scores, or they have terrible behavioral problems. And more we're getting schools that are seeing how others did it and they want to engage. We have one school where they hired new administrators and they really turned the district around. And they did it by listening to the students, say, what kind of activities do you want? Well, we want volleyball. We want woodworking. Okay. And so they found us, and that worked. We're big in rural communities, whether it's Appalachia or Central Valley in California, because they realize their shop teacher retired. They knew it was good. It never wasn't good. It just got too expensive, too dangerous, too much insurance, and then too hard to staff because we're not minting shop teachers anymore. So our approach again is let's take someone who is good and make them able to teach this. And if you have a shop teacher, good for you. But they're probably teaching, too many sections. There's more demand than there is teacher. So what if you could reserve them for level 3 and have our program for level 1 for the kids that are kind of trying it on for fit, and save your expert for the kids who need the expertise. It doesn't need to be so complex. So we see the demand. I was one of those kids that had home ec, sewing, welding, carpentry, and obviously they did away with that. And I was also one of those kids that, my parents' expectation was going to college, right? Which I value that. But you still have parents that are out there that their expectation is higher education. Talk a little bit about the curriculum where you get the best of both worlds here, right? Whether it's with Career Connections, the college credits, because, we don't necessarily have to sacrifice one for the other. You could do both. Talk a little bit how we could do that. Absolutely, you can do both. I joke that it's like 5 AP classes for the hands-on crowd. So the idea is that the Carpenters Union 20 years ago created a phenomenal curriculum called Career Connections. And at one point, I believe they were the 5th largest technical publisher in the country. So this curriculum's been vetted at the national level. It's approved everywhere. And in our region of the Eastern Atlantic states, the training group got that curriculum approved by a local university, Thomas Edison State University, which said, okay, if you do level 1, you'll get 3 credits. You do level 2, you get some more. If you do all 3 levels, you can earn up to 16 college credits. You can be in Hawaii, and we'll still issue the credits for the cost of 1 transcript fee, which right now is like $400. So you as a kid getting 16 college credits in high school for a $400 fee, that is the cheapest credits you're ever going to find. And you're earning them by making projects. And something you said earlier, Anthony and Cyndie, the idea of giving back to your community. Some of our projects are make and take. And we love that because, for some kids, they make a footstool and it's their little sibling is able to reach the sink, brush their teeth. They're making a bookcase, they're using that bookcase in their home. So they're contributing to their own household, right? As a high school student. Then they're earning college credits, plus they're building relationships with the local council reps who are coming and visiting. And at some point, they're also ideally going on a tour of the training center. So they realize, okay, well, I might go to college, but you know what? There's this training center where I could go and do a 4-year apprenticeship, earn while you learn, earn more college credits, maybe graduate with an associate's degree in construction management. And it's just hard to make these decisions as a kid, as a high schooler. Like, I don't know what I want to do, man. I'm 16. Like, you're asking a lot of me to make up my mind right now. So what if I can have it both ways, where I don't need to go the entire afternoon over to the vocational school. I can stay in my school and take more classes, but this one elective has all these benefits. Plus I'm learning math, plus I'm learning how to be a good collaborator. And I like working with my hands. And so I'm discovering something about myself so that I can then I have more information to make a better decision, right? We're not trying to track kids in one way or the other. We just want them to have more information, make better decisions about what they want to do next. So the demand is there. The kid's will is there. We're just trying to help connect the dots.
Sure. The Carpenters Union values the opportunity for these young people to come through the doors, and we've sponsored open houses where we open up our doors at the training centers so that community members, high school students, people in vocational schools can come through and see the apprentices at work. It's the level of training that requires you to become a carpenter is high level, and to have them come through our facilities and see the various different trades, it's just amazing. It's amazing to watch, but it's also something for them to really take away and say, hey, there's so much here. Because so many people think just wood, hammer and nails. We have so many different crafts that their eyes are wide open when they leave, understanding that there's such a huge umbrella of opportunity for them coming at them if they decide that they want to take this on as a trade.
Yep, it's great. It's a big world. There's a lot of opportunity out there, but how do you learn about it? So by bringing it into the school, we can bring it to them and they can discover it on their own.
Sure.
Yep, it's just great.
So there's a lot of folks that are in our broader labor community that may want to bring this program to their own areas. How would they go about doing that? What does that look like for someone, even myself? I know I've had personal conversations in school systems in our area, but would love to know how someone who wants it for their own school or their own child, how do they go ahead and have that conversation?
Sure. So a couple levels. One is, so we work with schools, we work with summer camps, community organizations, and even workforce development boards. In every case, I would say please go to our website. It's maplewoodshop.com. One word, Maplewoodshop, and look at. It's organized by what kind of community organization you're with, what age, what your purpose is, and fill out a form. We'll get back to you right away and help figure out how we can help. And whether you're in Oregon or you're in New Jersey or somewhere else, we're happy to help. And then figure out something that works for you and your organization. We want you to have a sustainable program so that it can keep going year after year. Summer camps, they have like 50, 70% turnover because it's a lot of youth working there. And so every year we train the next generation of staff because we want them to have a program that's high quality year after year. So yeah, please check us out. You can see videos and case studies, and and if you want to champion this, we will support you with your other stakeholders. We've seen it all, and so we're happy to help you, find the answer to any objection that gets in your way.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to be here today, because we've seen, the Carpenters Union at least, have seen the success that your program has brought to the industry, particularly for our members, our future members, bringing it to a different level now where folks are getting involved a lot younger. There's so much more buy-in. And we're happy to be part of this process, to see the success of your company grow now that you're a union company as well, which is great for us. But we couldn't be any prouder to have this partnership.
Thank you. Super grateful.
Agreed.
Grateful to be here. Grateful to each of you. And I got to say, taking the shop union, it's not painful. People would have you believe something else, but it's been great to work with the region, our own council rep. When we need staff, it's, we pick up the phone and we get a talented person pretty soon. So it's just been a great partnership. We're grateful for what you're doing. We're grateful to be a part of what we can all do together. And whether it's, look, for the people listening, if they're, pro-union or they have some feelings about it, you know what? Meeting people in the real world and just sitting down having a meal, we can all figure it out. So thank you so much.
Thank
you, Mike.
Appreciate it.